Hello, my name is Lisa Rose and I'm one of the community midwives, and I've just been asked to do a video to discuss positioning and attachment when feeding your baby. Before I start, I just want to signpost you all to the YouTube Global Health Media Project. So if you go on YouTube and just type in Global Health Media Project and watch the first video which comes up, I think it's about 10 minutes long. It's a really good video which will just reiterate, visually especially, all of the points that I'm about to talk through now. It goes through how to hold your baby, different positions to hold your baby, and when do you know is your baby latched onto the breast correctly or not. One of the main issues moms tend to have in the first few days, weeks of feeding their baby is having a poor latch. So when the baby doesn't quite get enough of the nipple and areola into their mouth, and then they cause damage to the mum's nipple, which can then lead on to lots of other issues including poor milk supply, so much pain that you don't really want to put your baby to the breast that much, and weight loss with the baby if they're not feeding correctly. So definitely have a little look at the Global Health Media Project video on YouTube, because it's a really good video, just to sort of visually see is my baby latching onto the breast well or not, and what can I do to sort of tweak the way I'm holding my baby. So I'll go through several points myself now. So before you feed your baby, it's really important that you're really comfortable. So some babies can feed for up to an hour, if not a little bit longer. So you've got to make sure that whatever position you get into is a position that you can maintain for a good length of time. I know moms quite often will just sort of get their baby onto their breast, not really thinking about much else, and then they find that they're sitting really awkwardly, or a cushion's really uncomfortable behind their back, or they start to get really thirsty halfway through. So it's important that you think about your environment before you feed your baby. Make sure you're comfortable, that you've got plenty of cushions around you, you have a drink nearby, maybe a snack if you feel a bit hungry, and if you're in the living room and you want to watch some TV, make sure you've got your remote so you're not stuck with a really annoying channel on TV. So when you're nice and comfortable, the next thing to do is to think about how you're going to hold your baby. So there's lots of different positions that you can try for breastfeeding, but most of them will involve you having to support the baby's weight mainly by yourself. So the main principles are making sure that your baby is nice and close to you, that your baby's tummy is towards your tummy, that you support most of your baby's weight with your forearm, and you allow the baby's head to be nice and free. So the best way to sort of hold the back of your baby's head is to have your hand in a Y shape, support the baby's upper back and shoulders with the palm of your hand, and then allow the baby's head to just sort of sit in that Y shape, because then it allows that head to be nice and free and give the baby the mobility to sort of explore the breast and have a nice deep latch when they do go on to latch on. You want to make sure the baby's body is nice and straight, so the head and body are in a straight line and the ears are in line with the baby's shoulders. So that's sort of the main way that you want to be supporting your baby and making sure the position of your baby is good. So the different sort of positions you can feed your baby in, the main one most mums go for is something called the cradle hold or the cross cradle hold. So it's basically, cross cradle is where you have your opposite arm wrapped around your baby, and then you use this hand to sort of move your breast around to try and stimulate a good latch, get your nipple towards the baby's nose and get a good latch. The cradle hold is when you have this hand free, so you're supporting the weight of the baby with your forearm and the upper back with your palm, and allowing the baby's head to be nice and free, and then it gives you this hand free to then be able to position the baby onto your breast. And then once the baby's got a good latch, you can then bring this arm around and relax your baby into it. You also have the rugby ball hold. So if you have quite large breasts, sometimes the rugby ball, football hold is more comfortable. So same sort of principles, you still want to keep your baby's head and body in line, but you'll be bringing your baby towards your side. So this is generally aided with lots of cushions. So if you're on a sofa, you're sitting upright, lots of cushions to be able to support the baby. You're still supporting the weight of the baby with your forearm and supporting its upper back and allowing the head to be free, but it gives gives you, especially if you have bigger breasts, but also if you have smaller breasts, whichever way, it just gives you, it makes it a bit easier for you to be able to see the way your baby latches onto the breast. And you bring the baby up and onto your breast and sort of sit in that sort of position. Some babies like to lie on one side, and you'll quite often find that, like, a lot of mums will say, oh, my baby had a preferred breast. And that's just because they seem to like lying on that one side. So you can feed off this breast really well, but then when you turn your baby around and feed off this breast, they seem to be a bit fussy with it and not feed very well. So in those instances, it's a good idea to do the cross cradle hold on one side and then the rugby ball hold on the other, so the baby is still lying on the side. So how to make sure that the baby attaches well to the breast. So it's important that you point the baby's nose towards the nipple. So we find we get a lot of mums who will try and just put the nipple directly into the baby's mouth. But if you have a baby which latches onto the breast directly, then they won't have a deep latch, they'll have quite a shallow latch, which can then cause nipple damage, nipple pain. So it's important that you aim the baby's nose towards the nipple, so that when the baby then has a big wide open mouth, and you really want that baby's mouth to be wide like a bird, that very wide open mouth, it will tilt its head up, and then as it takes a big gulp of breast, the nipple goes quite far back into the baby's throat. If the baby latches well, the nipple and areola go as far back to the soft palate in the baby's mouth. But if the baby has a poor latch, then the nipple or areola skin sits right at the front of the baby's mouth and hits the hard palate. And it's the hard palate which is what does the damage to the nipple. So that's why it's really important you try and get as much into the baby's mouth as possible. You wait for that really wide open mouth before you sweep your baby in and onto the breast, to hopefully aid that positioning as far back in the baby's mouth as possible. So if it's painful, then that's a good indicator that the baby isn't on the breast correctly. When you first start breastfeeding, a little bit of discomfort when you initially latch the baby on isn't uncommon, because your nipples have never experienced this sort of feeling before, but that should settle within a few seconds. And if it doesn't, if the pain continues, then the baby's latch isn't very well and you need to take your baby off. So you need to break the seal by popping a clean finger inside the corner of the baby's mouth, and you just pop the baby off the nipple. So clean finger in, and the baby will generally just come away from the nipple. You need to break that seal though, because otherwise they'll pull on your nipple a bit. And then once you break that latch, then you go through the same principles again, making sure the baby is close, tummy to tummy, head and body in line, nipple is pointed towards the nose, and you wait until that baby has a really wide open mouth before you swoop the baby in and onto the breast. You're aiming to swoop the baby up and on, and you should see more of the areola over the top than on the bottom if the baby has a really good latch around your nipple. Some people are under the misconception that it is the nipple which gives off the milk, but it's not just the nipple, it's also the milk ducts which are sitting around the nipple, which is why we want the baby to get as much of the skin around the nipple as possible, not just the nipple. So the nipple sits quite far back in the baby's mouth. The baby's cheeks should be nice and full when they're sucking. So if they're sucked in, then they've not got a great latch. They should be really full, and you should just see them sucking in and out. It will start with, quite often babies when they feed start off with really fast sucking motion, and then it becomes a nice slow sucking motion. So if you notice that your baby is continuously sucking really fast and it never really settles into that slow suction, then it might not have a really deep latch, and you need to think about taking your baby off and repositioning. I have so many moms tell me when I've gone out to see them the next day and they have some nipple damage, that they just got to a point where they were like, my baby wasn't really latching very well, but it was getting really frustrated. So when they did latch, I just kind of left them, even though it was really painful, because I thought, well, at least they're going to get something. And I know that that's tempting, especially if you're finding you're having a lot of difficulties. But the moment that you let your baby have one poor latch, you will then create damage, which makes every latch after that quite difficult. I personally breastfed my own boy for 7 months, and I never had any issues really breastfeeding him. I was very lucky, he latched on quite well. But when he was about 3 months old, he had one incorrect latch, lasted for several seconds before I was like, oh God, that's really uncomfortable, and I took him off and we went back on. But then for about 3 or 4 days afterwards, I would have pain on that side of my breast when I went to go feed him on that side. So it just goes to show it only takes a short amount of time of an incorrect latch for there to be damage, which your body then has to heal. So obviously every feed after will feel uncomfortable until it heals. So if you continuously allow your baby to go to the same breast having had a poor latch, and you keep allowing that poor latch to continue, you're going to create a lot of damage, and it's going to get to a point where you don't want to put your baby on that breast anymore. And breastfeeding should be such a lovely time. It's hard work until it clicks. It doesn't come easy to everyone, but it should be a lovely time of bonding and closeness with your baby. So we want to get it right from the start. It's really important when you first start breastfeeding, if you're in hospital or at home, that you ask for help from your midwife. And even if it's just for your midwife to assess, is the baby like on the breast very well? Does it look like it's got a really good latch? Because that's another thing I find quite often is moms will think they have a good latch because there's not a lot of pain initially, but after 24 hours there then is quite a lot of nipple pain, and it actually just turns out the baby wasn't quite on the breast enough. And sometimes it's just little tweaks with the position or how the baby's being held, or actually at what point is a wide enough mouth before you swoop the baby in, and then it can quite often be corrected. So just make sure you ask for help if you're not sure, and don't persist if you feel like there's pain there without support.